Socialism. It gives us such wonderful things as government-run grocery stores, sanctuary cities, and child labor. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on another fun-filled episode of the Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle. So you all learn how to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving your pump at the gym. Stick around. We'll talk about that later in today's episode. But first, yes, let's talk about all things socialism, but not from a philosophical standpoint, but from a true outcome perspective. Returning here to the Brian Nichols Show today is now from Fee, Connor Vasile. Welcome back to the program. How you doing, Connor? Long time no chat.
I'm great. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Can't complain, man. I mean, I could complain. We were just complaining before we hit record about the dew point here in the Midwest with the corn sweat, which I didn't know was actually a real thing. And sure enough, it's a real thing. Our dew point today is like 80 degrees. So for folks playing along in the home game, the higher the dew point, the harder it is for water vapor to evaporate and actually help cool you down. So you're walking, you're sweating, you're thinking, oh, sweat's going to cool me down. Nope, not the case when you're in the corn sweat area. Actually, it's funny. We were visiting family down in South Carolina, and it was hotter down there, but it felt cooler because you could, actually sweat and get cool. Here, Indiana, not so much. But enough about my woes and corn sweat. Connor, do us a favor. Reintroduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience and why we're talking today about not the benefits of socialism, but rather the very pesky and, dare I say, dangerous outcomes.
Well, thanks again for having me today, sir. I'm Connor Vasile. I'm a writer and political commentator and analyst. I write about all things about politics, history, economics, social movements. And today we are here to talk about socialism, particularly its rise in popularity recently, specifically in places like New York, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in California, where we see people unreasonably or just assuming that they need to rely on government aid, regardless of what their problem is. So we're going to take a deep dive into that. I'm looking forward to it.
Likewise. Well, and let's start here, right? Because it's one thing to talk about the negative outcomes of socialism. I think most folks who are listening to the show today are probably entering into the conversation, maybe with some preconceived notions, or dare I say some bias, both on the anti-socialism side, or heck, for the three folks listening who are pro-socialism, right? Like this episode, I want to really start from the beginning, right? We're going to dig into why we on the more anti side are talking about the negative outcomes, but how do we get here, right? Like, it's one thing to say, oh, here we are, this is happening, but it's another thing to reverse engineer and understand the how, the why, right? And I do this in the sales world. When I'm working with a business, I'm talking through, their outbound sales motion, for example. I'm a go-to-market specialist for my day job. And let's say I'm sitting down with an organization and they're like, dude, our sales are horrible. Like, it's just, we're not hitting our number. My sales team, it's attrition left and right. When one guy joins, another guy leaves. Like, the customers they're buying once maybe and they're not buying again. Like, help us out, right? And they're almost always expecting some magic wand to just make things better. And what I usually do, and it usually drives them crazy, but I say, okay, before we talk about solutions, I need to understand how we got here in the first place, right? I need to understand what the mentality was of your original go-to-market. I need to understand why your salespeople were leaving, not from they left, but what were the things that led to them leaving? And flipping this over to the socialism script, right? This is where we're seeing a lot of folks just kind of looking at the outcome, saying, these socialist policies are being promoted, government-run grocery stores, sanctuary cities, like, this is bad, right? But they're not taking into consideration why the voting base, why the citizens of these certain areas are actually in favor of this. So let's dig into this a little bit more in detail, Connor. Talk to us about this seeping socialism into the younger generations. And I'm going to pick on a specific piece of these younger generations because we see the metrics. It's mind-blowing. Gen Z, millennial, white women, college educated. I mean, the support for left-wing progressive policies that, yes, do dip into the world of socialism relative to their male peers, it's night and day. There's like a 25-point difference between support of these more leftist policies versus the men in the generation. And that's not like a sexist thing to say. That's the data. That's what the statistics are showing us. So why is there this appeal of socialism towards this specific demographic? And I guess, Connor, how did we get here? I guess that's the best way to ask it. How did we get here?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have hours upon hours to delve into the history. But then, as you just succinctly mentioned, like the people here, they know roughly the background of socialism, the history of it, how it came to pass. But just to give a little context and background information, what we're seeing now is a huge prevalence in favor of government-run industries, government-run programs, which basically take apart everyone's lives, for lack of better phraseology, and basically tells them what to do. Now, the most glaring example of this we're seeing right now is with the New York mayoral run, where the Democratic candidate Zoran Mamdani is a self-proclaimed bleeding heart socialist. And he's proposing things like government-run grocery stores. He wants to do massive rent freezes and take over city blocks in order to basically maintain or repair, in his own words, these defunct apartment complexes and buildings. He wants free childcare. He wants to raise taxes on the rich, etc. And the thing is, he has a lot of support from this, especially from the younger crowd. I mean, in early voting in New York, 40% or about of the early voters were pretty young, under the age of 40. So that being said, it's not surprising coming from a city of New York, like, wow, socialism is popular in New York City. Wow, who would have thought? But it just goes to show that there has been this shift from personal merit, personal enterprise, going out and doing your own job and fulfilling your life on your own terms, to, okay, well, life is already so complicated, life is already so expensive, what will the government give me? So that's that shift we're seeing, especially with the younger crowd nowadays, and it's all about marketing at the end of the day.
Wow, it's almost like we've been talking about that for quite a while here on the show. Everything in life is sales and marketing, right? You need to get what we call the political signage, which is your marketing, keeping things top of mind, trying to keep that familiarity going. And then on the other side of it, it's sales, right? It's articulating the main pain points. In this case, well, you hit nail on the head, right? Government is too complicated, or the life is already too stressful, whatever it may be. So there is just this tacit embrace, or sometimes full-throated embrace, of socialist policies. Now, there is what we talk about many times here on the show. There is outcomes, but then there's also the intentions behind the scenes. And some people try to justify outcomes with intentions. Oh, well, yes, the war on poverty didn't work, but it was noble of them to try and do that, right? And the war on drugs didn't work out, but it was noble of them to try and do the war on drugs. Like, this is the mentality that really has continued through, not just in today's generation, but these are mentalities that we saw, back during the 80s, during the 60s, during the 40s, and it continues to snowball in just different areas, right? So when we talk about these younger voters, the 40% of early voters that you mentioned, that, I mean, again, elephant in the room, they all voted for a literal socialist. I'm going to go on a limb and say, I mean, he might as well be a communist. He's talking about seizing the means of production, rise up of the proletariat, like all this kind of very commie garbage verbiage, right? He's echoing that in his campaign speeches. It's just like, okay, he's telling you who he is, believe him. And there are folks who are believing him and they're openly supporting him. So let's go into the intentions, right? Like the idea I want to just extrapolate further. People are frustrated with the current system. My generation, your generation, we've grown up with the proverbial crap hitting the fan. Like, it feels like every 5 years, 10 years or so, like, oh boy, here we go. Another, world changing event, war on terror, stock market crash of 2008 with a mortgage crisis, COVID, like all these things we're getting hit with this nonstop. And government has been, unfortunately, the answer to a lot of these problems out there. But it almost, and I'm going to say almost, I think the reality is, Connor, and I want to hear your context and perspective here, but these problems that we're reacting to are problems that were actually solved by, or rather created by government in the first place, because of these good intentioned policies and proposals that a lot of our friends more on the political left, but I'm just going to call out a lot of friends in the political right as well, have been promoting. And you look at your Josh Hawleys of the world, right? Or your Tom Cottons of the world, or even our sitting vice president, JD Vance. They're much more in favor of echoing a populist sentiment, which I get, right? Populism, by and large, in our system is the only way to really win in a democratic electoral system, because democracy is a literal 50 50% plus one majority, right? So you break that down to individual districts, you got to be popular. So what are the popular proposals? And some of these popular proposals are like either buddy with some socialist solutions, or they're just repackaging some more like left-wing economics or left-wing socialist mentalities into a different, different present that they're giving to the average person in America, and trying to resell it as a right-wing solution. So again, this isn't just a left-wing, right-wing thing. This is a mentality issue that we're seeing. So talk to us more about these intentions and like how these good-hearted intentions end up causing more problems, much like the use cases we outlined here earlier. If you're a new parent, you already know the feeling. Running on maybe 3 hours of sleep, chasing your kid before the coffee kicks in, it's like you're constantly in survival mode. And even if you do find time to eat clean or sneak in a workout, your body's just not operating at full speed. Stress, sleepless nights, and poor nutrition tank your nitric oxide levels, leaving you sluggish, foggy, and unfortunately snapping at the people you love the most. And trust me, I've been there. That's why I started using Cardio Miracle. That's a clean nitric oxide blend that supports energy, circulation, and mood with no caffeine crashes or stimulants. Just ingredients like organic beetroot, CoQ10, and L-arginine that naturally help you stay present, productive, and powered through parenthood. Trust me, this stuff helps you show up for your family. So, scan the little QR code over my shoulder, click the link in the show notes, or simply head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS to give it a try. And by the way, when you go to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS, you're going to get a discount automatically applied at checkout. Just look for the little note saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols at the Cardio Miracle homepage. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show.
Definitely. So that was amazing how you just put it. It's the same old deal, the same old ideology, but just wrapped up with a different, prettier bow. And at the end of the day, that's what we're seeing here today. It doesn't matter whether you are from the left or from the right. You see people looking to government as their pretty much sole solution to their problems, because basically what we see here today is people are desperate. People are looking for positive, actual change. And they think the quickest, fastest, easiest way is, okay, well, the government already has the resources and the means and the manpower to do these things. Let's just give them the ability to do so.
And I'm being taxed left and right to help pay for these government programs. So I might as well get my nuts worth. Yeah.
Definitely. And you might as well also, give them a little tip via Venmo or PayPal now, because the taxes aren't enough. You can now even PayPal the government more money because they're in need, clearly. But I think the problem at the end of the day is emotion, right? The emotional appeal of socialism. So we've talked about this term before, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yep.
But we see horrible, horrible consequences that stem from that. Look at California, for example. Everyone there is, and I'm being proverbial, not everyone, but sanctuary city policies are very popular, right? They do not want the federal government coming in, taking illegal migrants and documented workers, what have you, away from these communities. The problem with that sort of ideal, right? That, we're going to protect our community and everyone in there because we're all tolerant and love each other and kumbaya. The issue with that is that tens of thousands or even millions, we don't know, they're not documented, of migrant children are lost. They are trafficked either through work labor or sex trafficking every single year. And we don't know where they are. All thanks to sanctuary city policies, just like the ones implemented in Los Angeles, which prevent federal agencies and federal officials to come in and actually save those children. Now, it's interesting because we were just talking about how government is the assumed arbiter or the solution bringer to all our problems. But in this case, when children are involved, as a direct consequence of this government mandated policy to basically control every single aspect of your city or your state, it begs the question, well, are they really creating solutions, or are they just bringing these little tidbits, these little grains of sand, whatever, to fix or look like they're fixing the problems that they brought in the first place?
Mm-hmm. You hit on something, and I want to focus on this again, because Ben Shapiro became big in the 2010s because he was going around college campuses, owning these leftist college students. And what was his, if he was Woody from Toy Story and you pulled the string on his back, what was his number one expression, right? Well, facts don't care about your feelings, right? And that's fine. It's fair. However, feelings are what sell. And when I'm teaching sales teams, I'm teaching folks in the world of politics how to effectively sell your ideas, I'm always talking about there's two different kind of buying steps we take in our mind. First is the initial, like, I'm going to buy this, right? That initial, I'm going to buy this, is an almost guaranteed response to some emotional trigger, right? And that emotional trigger is usually based on one of two things. One, you're addressing some big pain point that you're helping resolve. So, whatever the problem may be, the pain point may be, here's a solution to that problem. Or, hey, we're going to take where you are today and we're going to make it even better, right? We're going to give you more positive ROI. So there's the love and the fear, or the love and the hate kind of mentality, right? Then the second piece of the buying decision, this goes to the facts don't care about your feelings, right? Because the facts piece are the pieces that we use, the features, the benefits, the facts, the figures, to justify our buying decision from the emotional standpoint. So, I'm making this decision to buy, this brand new AI tool, right? And I made that decision, that knee-jerk reaction, because I see it's going to help me either, fix a problem or make things better. All right. And then you sit back for like 10 minutes and you're like, should I have bought that? Oh yeah, I should have, because this new AI tool can do this. It can do this. It can do this. It makes this better. It makes this thing that was bad, it makes it go away, right? And that's the justification piece. So when you present solutions where it's only focusing on one area, right? You're going to have problems because people are making the emotional trigger, and there is actually no facts, figures, benefits to actually back up that emotional decision. Or on the flip side, you're just layering people with these constant facts and figure sheets, hitting them with the read this book, you'll understand mentality. And people don't end up ultimately making the decision to buy, right? Because as well educated as you may have, helped them become, there is still no direct tie to an emotional reaction to the benefit that's going to actually build for that person. So it is imperative for us in, trying to help sell our ideas, to your point, right? Not just go into the sales world, but also the marketing world, right? You have to use marketing to get ground cover going so people are even aware of your solution. Like, this is the one thing I see, libertarians, I love to pick on my libertarian friends because, we're libertarians. But when you see libertarians who are like, oh my God, this is the problem, here's our solution. And they just come out of nowhere and they're trying to enter into the main conversation. People are like, who the heck are you? Where did you come from? Go away. You're not offering real solutions, because if you were, you'd be around more often, right? So libertarians just drop the ball terribly on the marketing side. And when it comes to the sales side, we get so focused on the facts, figures, logic, reason side of things that we don't take into consideration that that's not how people buy, not just in the public policy world, but just in real life. In real life, this is not how people buy or make buying decisions. So if we're just trying to, good idea people to death, we're going to end up having a bad time.
Absolutely. And, I really think we've come full circle. Politics have ultimately become a game of bread and circuses. And I got to give it to the Democrats and the liberals on this one. They have truly mastered over the decades the art of persuasion. Yep. And it goes all the way back to emotion. It's not what the long-term effects of this policy or this plan may do. It's what can it give me right now in this moment, because I'm hurting, I'm suffering. Look at inflation, look at these problems. What can the government give to me? Now, if you look at campaign slogans, campaign ads, during campaign season, we see these emotional pulls. Yeah, it pulls at your heartstrings, regardless of whether you're a Republican or Democrat or independent. And if the more conservative or libertarian folks want to have some traction with the people nowadays and actually get the largest common denominator of individuals to support them, they need to appeal to emotion. And unfortunately, these days, socialism looks like the end-all be-all to solve all their problems. So if we want an alternative to that, we got to show them a good alternative, not just throw facts and figures at them.
There's I'm trying to find it. There's I'll tell about it. I was going to pull the ad up, but back during the election, there was that Donald Trump ad, right? Where it was the anti-trans ad that really, I mean, this speaks to what we're talking about, right? Like you could go in and talk about like the biological differences of men and women. You could talk about, the testosterone levels and blah, 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 go into the intricacies. Donald Trump had an effective ad during the campaign that literally was just talking about how Democrats, or Kamala Harris, is for they, them. Donald Trump is for you, right? That's an emotional appeal. That's not him going into if you look at the actual genetics of certain individual, 15% of like, it's none of that garbage. It is, he's hitting on the emotional appeal because that's what made people make a buying decision. Now, going to Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, you have to deliver the goods, right? And this is where Donald Trump and his administration is starting to become stuck between a rock and a hard place, because they made a lot of emotional appeals and promises during the campaign that are now, you're at the point you have to actually deliver the goods. And it's been a little flaky. Like there's been some areas that have been really good. Some other areas, not so much. And a lot of that has been because when you do sell, you have to sell based on not just the feel goods, but the actual follow through. So I'm concerned, Connor, because what we're talking about here today, the socialist mentalities of the do good politics, right? Just do something and do good, regardless of outcomes. The intentions matter, right? I'm afraid that there are going to be folks who see what's happening now. Trump making the great arguments, or not even arguments, just the great emotional appeals, getting people to buy into what he was selling, to buy into the MAGA base, to buy into the Maha base, whatever it may be, right? But now seeing that the outcomes aren't necessarily lining up with what was presented as a solution, I'm concerned that might either push people away from a more right-leaning mentality, just by and large, because they're like, well, what the hell is that for? Why'd I invest my political capital, my personal capital, into supporting someone who, lots of people have emotional negatives towards, right? And maybe that hurts your work relationships, your family relationships, your friendships, right? We've all been through this over the past 10 years. But then on the other side, like the folks who were kind of sitting on the fence, trying to figure out which direction do I go? They've seen both sides now. And I'm afraid that we're going to see that they look at the left and the right both as great, mouthpieces, but not really good at actual solutions. So what's in it for them, to your point, to actually enter into the political process? And what happens is, instead of the majority of folks who are on the fence feeling that they have a political solution to the problems that we see in the world that will yield positive outcomes, they say, heck with it. I'm not going to even spend my time, energy, and effort in this world. And then what ends up happening is the smaller portions, like the 22% of of voters who are Democrat and the 25% that are Republican, they're the ones who steer the ship. Meanwhile, the 65% of Americans who are just on the fence or not involved in the political process kind of along for the ride.
Definitely. I think now is more important than ever before that politicians not only talk the talk, but also walk the walk, right? And even if people argue that Trump did deliver on
Thomas Massey.
There you go. We need more of him. But at the end of the day, even if some people may argue that Trump did deliver on certain promises, even how you present those wins need to appeal to that emotional standard.
Tell us more there. Yeah.
So, for example, let's look at the immigration promises, right? He promised mass deportations, protecting our communities, angel families, etc. Some may argue that he is fulfilling his promise there, although to the degrees depends on who you ask, right? It should be more, it should be less, etc. However, the way that his administration is going about presenting those wins, that information, is definitely hurting him in the voting base, right? A lot of people are actually flipping the script, depending on the poll that you ask, and they're now not favoring mass deportations. They're not favoring his immigration policy because they see it as too harsh, too abrupt, too inhumane even. Now, once again, it doesn't matter whether the long-term effects is positive or negative. It's the current perception at issue. And when you have legacy media, when you have MSNBC, CNN, even Fox News at times criticizing your administration and your policies, it goes to show that you need to actually spin this really quick in order to get people behind your back. And you're not able to do that, they're going to go to the next best option, which right now are literal socialists.
If you're a business owner, do you ever open your phone bill and feel like you need a decoder ring? Regulatory recovery fee, support access surcharges, platform licensing. Half the stuff on there is just made up jargon for we felt like charging you more, and here it is. And don't worry, other folks are over it too. And that's why I am recommending you Level 365. They're upfront, no hidden fees, no surprise line items, no gains. You pay what you agreed to, period. And if you need help, a real human answers the phone. Clean pricing, real support. It shouldn't be revolutionary, but here we are. Yeah, that's a little scary, man. And like, I don't mean to go back to just picking on the college educated white women of my generation and the younger generation, but like to see the growing gap of the college educated white chicks and the college educated white dudes, right? The difference is, I mean, it is eye opening to see how the younger men have become like even more right wing, not than millennials, not than Gen X, even more right wing than the rightest of right wing boomers, right? And on the flip side, women are becoming more and more left wing than Kamala Harris, more left wing than AOC, more left wing than Barack Obama. Like, you know, we're seeing this right now happen in real time. What happens to that squishy middle, Connor? Because like they're going to see both sides and be like, neither of these solutions are what I want. I don't want a right-wing fascist dictatorship, and I don't want a left-wing communist utopia. I want common sense. I want real-life solutions that impact real-life people in a positive way. So, like, what do we do? Like, what is a call to action to make this better as we continue to see the younger generation, especially, continue to divide in their political preferences?
That's definitely a very large concern, and we're only going to see that gap grow wider with each and every year, even months, you know. So right now, it's kind of ironic because we have one of the most expansive, free, even would argue, and we have the entire internet at our fingertips, right? We have all different viewpoints, all different opinions, all different ways and facts of life presented to us at our fingertips. And despite that, we have basically locked ourselves in these echo chambers. Now, the specific divide between men and women comes down to reality. I mean, I saw some statistics recently how it's harder now for college-educated men to get jobs than it is college-educated women. So they are literally leading different lives, where one sees, oh, well, life is good and we should expand access and availability of education to more people, ergo socialist policies, versus the other side saying, well, no, life is harder for me. We can't keep doing it this way. We need a major change. That's the male version by and large. So we're seeing two separate realities at play going head to head. How do we fight that? How do we combat that and bridge that gap? Well, unfortunately, it's not only going to be conversation. It's not only going to be dialogue and communication. It's going to have to be real life experiences. Now, I hope we don't get to the point where we have to actually elect the literal socialists to become our mayors or our elected officials in order to see the hardship that people who fled communism a few decades ago could tell you. But unfortunately, at some point, we're going to come to a head and we have to actually face reality as it is. Not simply, oh, this socialism is wonderful, hunky-dory, or, oh, life is bad, I'm going to blame everyone but myself because I have no agency kind of, you know, incel mentality. We have to actually combine both and say, listen, this is your perspective, this is your way of life, but the reality is socialism sucks. That's my message.
Socialism does suck. Amen. Well, and I guess this then, man, like this is where I also get a little concerned. I'd say a little concerned, a lot of concern, because what we have just identified as reality, right? Socialism sucks. I hope folks agree, by and large. But there are, to a lot of these, is it the Ronald Reagan quote? The folks who they think they know so much, but they know so little, right? That's the problem with our leftist friends, or our liberal friends. They think they know so much, but they actually know so little. But their reality is entirely shaped by a lot of the philosophical feel good, do good mentality. So when they hear us say this is the reality, they say, well, that's your reality. That's not our reality.
It's your truth.
Oh man, there it is. There, yeah, it's your truth. You're speaking your truth, Connor. But like if you were to go talk to, and I think of, I had a good friend back in college, and if I were to go talk to him right now and be like, hey, like we need to get away from these left-wing policies, he would have an aneurysm, because he has bought so much into this leftist narrative. I mean, he works for a college now. He's working with young college, socialist kids all the time. So like, I'm sure that plays a role into that. But when I look at him, I'm like, man, like, how do I get you on board with reality? And I just want to go back to what you said earlier. Like, I'm almost wondering, and I know that there's going to be a lot of pain and suffering that comes with this, but we almost need to take our medicine good and hard, right? There's the old H.L. Mencken quote, democracy is the idea that the common person knows what they want and they deserve to get it good and hard, right? That right there, I think, will be, and unfortunately has to be, the solution and outcome that will change people's perspectives. And I'm going to say for the better, while in the short term experiencing very real hardship. Now, the problem therein is that as that pain is going on, the left that has brought these solutions to the table that are yielding the negative outcomes will 1000% point their finger at the other side. Say that this is all the right-wing fascists' fault, right? Like that's going to be the narrative. So we have an obligation, when the proverbial crap is hitting the fan, to be loud and vocal in terms of why this is failing, right? Like the $40 trillion that we're almost in debt right now as a country, that's real. That's a real number. Like we can fiddle far around it as much as we want. It's a real number. And we're getting to the point where the interest on the debt is like, what, a quarter of our national expenditures every single year. So that's going to continue to increase. That's going to continue to put us in financial hardship. And like, as this is happening, we have to be willing to sit down and call balls and strikes. Like, this is why this is happening. This is why this is happening. This is why you're feeling the suck right now, right? And to be able to not just like articulate the problems, but then offer those solutions, right? And here's how we're going to get out of this. And in the meantime, we're going to feel short-term pain. Just like when I weighed 385 pounds and I had to lose 185 pounds of 2 years of going out, diet, exercise, walking these back roads in northern New York at 4 a.m, like all these little things I had to do. It sucked. It sucked so much, Connor, but it yielded a positive outcome. And I think there is something from a mental standpoint, like a dopamine receptor standpoint, that we have been conditioned to not look at the outcomes as the solution, but rather the outcomes as the driver of an action, but rather we look at what it's going to take to get to that outcome that we focus more on. So like if we see more energy, more time, more effort being put into a solution, we might justify not going towards that solution because it's going to cost us more. We're in this dopamine society where we get on our smartphones, flip, 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 right? And like you get the dopamine receptors hit every single time. You don't have to sit and invest an hour and a half long, time frame to watch a movie to get a whole narrative, right? You can go on your phone, watch a YouTube short or a TikTok or a Facebook reel, and you're going to get, in 30 to 90 seconds, a condensed little story. It's going to trigger your dopamine and you're off to the races, right? And we've seen the thing that Scott Adams just did a little visual thing on this on Twitter, where he was showing the differences between if we prioritize the value of an outcome. And he used the example of, listen, you go talk to any family who has multiple children, and you ask them like, hey, was giving birth to a kid easy? The wife's gonna be like, no, it was not. Then why did you have a second one, right? And they're like, oh, I guess I'm looking at the value of having that other kid. They're not thinking about, oh my gosh, it's going to cost, it's going to cost so much more money, the pain of going through childbirth, all these negatives, right? Or not even negatives, just the things that might push somebody away from having a kid. Again, they look at the positive outcomes. And that is something I think we as a society have been so pushed away from actually doing. And I don't know, man, I'm going to ask you this, like, is that because we have become so conditioned as this instant gratification society? Like, is there something in that mentality that has led to where we are today?
Well, it's definitely more prevalent today than ever before, but this is a very uncomfortable conversation that a lot of people don't want to have. because it's actually not in human nature to have this much freedom and this much liberty. A lot of people, unfortunately, not only in America, but throughout the world, just want to be told what to do, because at least they know what's going to happen. They at least don't have to make that choice, take that risk for themselves.
By the way, my good buddy Jason Stapleton, before he ended his show, this was literally one of the main points he was talking about, how there are just so many folks just want to be literally told what to do. Give me the manual, give me the owner's guide, I'll follow it, but otherwise I just don't know what to do.
Exactly. That's hitting the nail right on the head. So it begs the question, with, let's say, TikTok or Instagram, social media in general, just exacerbating this issue to the point where people are just in paralysis. They don't want to even lead their own lives. They look at government, they see these socialist solutions and think, hey, that's easy. Why don't we just do that? It really begs the question, is this the right strategy nowadays in how we hold ourselves in politics? Or is there maybe an alternate system or alternate strategy we can take in order to get people to really fess up and look at reality and make a change?
What might that look like, Connor? Like, do you have some ideas you've been noodling on there?
A few, just doodling here and there. So at the end of the day, as we see our society progress, right? In order to seize power as a politician or as a political class, you have to appeal to the lowest common denominator. And right now, like you said, everyone wants a dopamine hit. They don't want to do the hard work. There's no discipline anymore.
Yes.
You're just going to give them freebies. It's just bread and circuses. So what the people want versus what they need are two completely different things. So, I mean, that's a conversation for another day, I think, because we can really get into the weeds of that. But if the people want these policies that will actively hurt them at the end of the day and even risk losing their democracy in the process, is that really the best policy to take on? Is there any sort of line in the sand that we cannot cross in order to maintain our security, maintain our prosperity, and grow? Or is it just, a free-for-all? Everyone just do whatever you want because it's quote unquote democracy. As long as you vote, it doesn't matter if you're educated on the issue. It doesn't matter if you know what you're talking about. Hey, as long as you check that little box, it's good to go. Yep. I don't think that's the way it works anymore.
No, it's not. And the reason I'm asking this question, because we hear on other podcasts, right? Like I'm going to look at the Cast IRL show. Like I was listening probably a week ago or so, and they were talking about this. Like, should it just be property owners, right? Should it just be net positive taxpayers? There's all these different ideas that are being tossed around out there, and I do hear merit in quite a few of them, because it's apparent that the solutions we've had right now just aren't working. They may have worked for a different time, but where we are today, it's obvious it's not the same. And I would argue that a lot of where we are today is both as a result, but also as a consequence of the advancement in technology. As we have been able to become more and more interconnected as a society, as local communities, as a country, right? And by the way, as a world, all of a sudden we started to pay more attention to issues that were not in our backyard and more, over in Bangladesh or over in Afghanistan. Or if you're living in New York City, you stop maybe paying as much attention to what was actually happening in your backyard, and you were paying more attention to what's happening in Texas, right? Or in Florida, right? Don't say gay bill. They're doing this. Don't say gay bill down in Florida. Can you believe it? Right? Like, okay, your city's on fire. Chill. Like, you just literally watched as hundreds of thousands of people vacated your city during COVID because your draconian COVID policies. Like, maybe you should check your own backyard first. But no, this mentality has, again, really exacerbated itself because of the advancement in technology. And I think for all the negatives that technology brings to the table, there are solutions that technology can also help bring to the table. As we see the advancements of AI, there's going to be a lot of different use cases there. Don't worry, I'm not an AI like everything kind of guy. I actually, for my day job, I sell AI, but I also sell against AI in many use cases. I use the example on my other podcast. I do the CX About the BS podcast, which is all business related, folks. So if you want to just go ahead into the contact center world, which is my day job, go ahead, check that out. But we were talking about this where I had a past guest He was touting how AI was going to be a great solution at this organization called Klarna. We've all probably heard of them. They're the buy now, pay later organization. They had back in 2024, I think it was, or end of 2023, I forget which time frame, but they had gone through and said, you know what, we're just going to axe 700 folks, and we're going to replace them all with AI. And they just went ahead and did it. And fast forward a year, you know what happened, Connor? They said, uh-oh, this didn't work, and actually made things a lot worse, objectively speaking. So now we're going to hire back all 700 folks. And what we found, we being Klarna, that it's not AI being better than humans that we're going to be leveraging. It's humans who are using AI. They're going to be being better, objectively speaking, relative to humans who don't. So you look at the advancements of technology, it's going to make us more efficient. It's going to make us more effective. And I dare say it's going to make us more empowered. However, there is like threats to advancement in technology, right? And I guess, to your point, this is a conversation for a different day, because we could dig into the weeds here of like what those future solutions might look like, whether that's from a philosophical standpoint, from a technological standpoint, a combination of the two, or something that we're not even paying attention to. I heard there's a big alien spaceship somewhere out in the netherworld right now. Connor, did you hear about that? It's a potential threat coming our way. So we might not even have a conversation to be had next year, because we're all floating vapor dust because we get Death Starred, right? So like this is all stuff that it's all theoretical, it's all hypothetical, but I think as we advance quicker and quicker and quicker, it's going to be something we really have to wrap our arms around and make some tough decisions, right? Like, is this the best way to do things? Maybe we need a more federal society. Maybe we need to really go back to our roots. Maybe the founders and the framers had something figured out right when they said super tiny federal government, big state governments, bigger local governments, right? Like a 9th and 10th Amendment. Why are they there in our Bill of Rights? Oh, because the idea was, okay, if this is not the federal jurisdiction, it's under the state. And oh, by the way, even if a right isn't necessarily listed, you still have the rights. So like there are these things I think we could get back to from our roots and not have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We can just look to see what we've already had mapped out. But Connor, I could go on and on. I think this is going to be a part 2 conversation for this conversation, but also this is a part 2 for you joining us here on the Brian Nichols Show. We had you on back last time talking about whether we would be greeted as liberators over in the Middle East. So folks, if you want to check out that episode, please go ahead and do so. But Connor, we're going towards the tail end of the episode today. Give us a nice, call to action here. What would you say to the audience as they take away our episode? Like, what should they do? They're hearing this. They're like, okay, I hear we're at a crossroads. Which direction do I go? What things should I be doing? What value can I bring to my community to make things better? Connor, what say you?
No matter what you see on social media, whether that's X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, what have you, never black pill, okay? The news is specifically constructed in order to make you detest and despair and feel negative emotions, because that is what sells. So whatever you're seeing out there, whatever may or may not be happening, never, ever dismay. Always look at each new day as an opportunity to reach out to people, to have a conversation with them, to actually understand what they're going through, and they can actually understand what you're going through too. Life is meant for us to interact with one another and provide value to other human beings, not just to type away on Twitter or post away saying, oh, how horrible this world is. At the end of the day, your life is your own. You have personal agency. Go out there and make whatever difference you think is possible. No matter whether it's big or small, at least you made a difference. Live life fully.
Connor Vasile, it's been great having you back on the show, buddy. Do us a favor. Let folks know where they can go ahead. Continue the conversation, social media links, all that and more.
Thanks, sir. I know I just, threw one at the social media. But yeah, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on X at Connor_Vasile. That's V as in Victor. You can also find my books on Amazon, The State Knows Best, and I'm Joe Biden in his own words.
There you go. All right, folks. Well, if you got some value from today's conversation, go ahead and give it a share. When you do, tag yours truly on Twitter. I guess that's X now, Facebook, and over on Instagram at B Nichols Liberty. You can find the Brian Nichols Show on your favorite podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is podcasts are delivered. And also the Brian Nichols Show is a video show. So head over to YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Facebook. You can catch the entire video version of the show over on those platforms. And we live stream every Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, except for today. today we're live streaming Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern because I was out of town. And you know what? I haven't taken a break in God knows how long, so I took a break. So you only got 2 shows this week. Sorry, but and we had to flex one of the days. I know, but hey, we had a lot of fun today. And by the way, the Brian Nichols Show is part of the great Lions of Liberty Network. So you want to go ahead and check out the other voices over of the other Lions like Lou Perez, Brian McWilliams, and John Odermatt. Head to Lions of Liberty in your podcast feed. Hit subscribe, and all 4 of our shows will hit your podcast feed there Monday through Friday, plus our joint show called Politics, where we talk about the bloodsuckers in Washington. It's a roundtable between all 4 of us. It's always a good time. And with that being said, final thoughts, Connor, as we say goodbye?
Do your research. Look into the whatever issues that are out there with an open eye, and never dismay.
There we go. All right. With that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Connor Vasile. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.